For this week's Waste of the Week, auditors at openthebooks.com look at a snapshot of forgiven PPP loans and found nearly $1.5 billion went to the wealthiest law and accounting firms. They say didn't show any financial hardships. Here to break it all down for us this morning, founder and CEO of openthebooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski. Good morning to you, Adam. Happy Friday.
Morning, Jan.
So this report that you worked on analyzed $1.4 billion in forgiven PPP loans from the COVID pandemic. And you were essentially trying to determine how much of the spending was actually necessary in keeping these firms and businesses alive and how much of it translated into just pure profit. And I looked over your report, quite extensive, I might add. Can you give us an overview on the methods behind this report and where all this data came from?
So the data comes from the federal agency that administered the program. That's the Small Business Administration, the SBA. Jan, if you remember, at the height of the pandemic in April of 2020, Congress rushed a COVID aid bill called the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. Mom and pop businesses on Main Street were shut down during the economic lockdown. Congress realized they had to compensate them for their losses, so they rushed an $800 billion eventually bill to compensate those businesses. However, what we found when we analyzed the data on where the money went, when we followed the money, we found that big law and accounting firms soaked up $1.4 billion of it. And I don't think Congress intended for big law and big accounting firms, some of the wealthiest in the country, to take that kind of bread out of the program.
Right. And in fact, 126 of the top 300 law firms in the country each got an average of $6.5 million. And then in the top 300 accounting firms across the country, you found 237 got an average of about $2.7 million. Like you said, these loans were supposed to be for payroll to keep people employed and to help some of these companies that could have gone under. So what did you find actually happened here? What was the money used for?
Well, the loans were forgiven, so you paid for it. You paid big law and big accounting. And our analysis showed little need for the money. For example, Ernst & Young, they're a big three accounting firm. They've got 365,000 employees worldwide. Their net revenues during the pandemic was about $30 billion. They had no need for taxpayer help or support. Yet $750,000 on a forgiven PPP loan flowed to their Guam subsidiary. We reached out for comment twice, no answer. Law firm, there was 20,000 law firms across the country that received a forgiven PPP loan. Boyce, Schiller, and Flexner, they're down in Boca Raton, Florida. They're a prominent law firm, very large. They received the most out of all the law firms in the country, $10.14 million of forgiven PPP. And during the 2 years of the pandemic, 2020 and 2021, their revenues were nearly $500 million. They billed their clients $480 million. Their partners made during those years collectively, on average, $4.5 million in profits apiece on top of their salaries.
Goodness.
They did very well during the pandemic. They took $10.14 million. Accounting firm, the 22nd largest accounting firm in the country, Watham Smith, they billed during 19 through 2021 their clients nearly $1 billion. They took $1 million in forgiven PPP. Again, little to no need.
Yeah, and what was the metric that was used in this process? Is there any way Congress could go after these firms now? Shouldn't they be required to give the money back? Because like you said, I'm sure taxpayers did not know they were subsidizing lawyers and wealthy law firm partners.
Congress needs to hold hearings. They need to get the CEOs and partners of these firms in front of Congress and say, why, you were doing very well. Why did you take money out of the program? There was lots of mom and pop businesses on Main Street that were closed out of round one PPP. All these firms got a round one PPP loan that was forgiven and paid for by taxpayers. I do want to point out one great circumstance. Congress wrote this program, the rules were lax, the big law and big accounting firms drove a bus through these lax rules, but during our research, we found Bass Berry, they're a prominent law firm down in Nashville. They took originally a $9 million PPP loan. When they realized their firm was going to be just fine, they immediately paid it back. That's how the program was supposed to work. Kudos to that law firm.
CEO and founder of openthebooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Have a good one.
Thank you.